Welcome everyone to this live podcast on Twitch, where you can find the news from the research industry that how our researchers keep on researching on various topics and domains to keep our life better, of course. And these articles posted on our website named postscientist.com. So if you are willing to check it out, please check it out. Otherwise, listening to this podcast will be enough for you guys, as it acts like an archive on the daily basis, providing you the information from the research industry. So, without wasting any further time, let's get started with the first topic of the day. Novel deep learning method may help predict cognitive function. Okay, let's see. Northwestern investigators have developed a deep learning based method that can predict cognitive function capacity based on brain shape and structure, detailed in a study published in scientific reports. The method, which use graph convolution network, neural network (CNNs), may also reveal new insights into the relationship between brain morphology and different cognitive functions, as well as the decline of brain function. When we apply the rich capabilities of CNNs to graph representation of the brain, we can explore the brain as an image in a previously unexplored way, said as Kathleen Bandeth, MD, Assistant Professor of Neurological Surgery and co-author of the study. Understanding how the relationship between brain structure and cognitive function changes throughout the life course has remained elusive. However, previous work suggests that fluid intelligence, the ability to problem solve and think and reason abstractly, depends heavily on two regions of the brain, the prefrontal cortex and partial cortex, both of which are involved in decision making and sensory perception, among other functions. Furthermore, investigating the association between brain structure and cognitive function may provide additional information about brain maturation, maturation and aging, as well as the psychological causes of cognitive impairment. In the current study, the investigator developed novel CNNs, a specialized deep learning model that extract distinct morphological features such as cortical thickness and subcortical structure from converted brain MRI scan to predict fluid intelligence. We are reducing the brain to its surface only, meaning that we are able to capture information not only about folding patterns but also about curvature and relationship between surface across tens of thousands of nodes, including the outer cortical surface, the inner cortical surface, and the surface of seven subcortical brain structures, Bennett said. Okay. Using their novel CNNs, the scientists extracted morphological information of cortical ribbons and subcortical structure from two large MRI datasets involving patients from different age groups. Okay. Using the approach, the investigators were able to demonstrate that their model significantly outperformed other similar state of the art methods, and that using a combination of cortical and subcortical structure it provided the most accurate predictions. Additionally, across both datasets, they found that structural feature of the amygdala, amygdala, hippocampus, and nucleus accumbens NAC, along with temporal, parietal, and cingulate cortex, draw the fluid intelligence prediction. Prior work investigating the neuroanatomic substrate of fluid intelligence has identified association between widespread cortical areas, but relatively few relationships have been reported with subcortical structure. Our study added to these studies by identifying involvement of the bilateral NAC hippocampus in the prediction of fluid intelligence, which have been linked to the aspects of cognitive science such as reward processing, judgment, and decision making, as well as motion regulation. said Yunan View, PhD, a graduate student in the McCormick School of Engineering, Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, and lead author of the study. According to the authors, their surface-based CNNs offer the opportunity to map, identify relationship between neurocognition and brain anatomy for myriad research purposes. The method also requires less training time and computation, making it more efficient to apply to other comprehensive data sets. For example, another recent study led by Brent used CNN analysis for aging and dementia, finding that the pace of brain aging differs between healthy individual and patient with dementia. We are now looking to see if similar cognitive measures can be predicted using this method, as has been done in our work here on fluid intelligence. But also, can we predict the onset of the dementia and potentially prevent or delay it before it starts? Band said. Of course, man. So, this is the deep learning model based on the brain or neuroscience topic. So, I mean, used in various applications, of course, as well as in AI, especially. So, yeah, great, man. Moving on to this next topic, researchers offer roadmap for identifying new neuroprotective treatments by leveraging sex differences. Okay, it's going to be now again neuroscience topics. So let's see what we get in this. A new study from UCLA researcher provides a strategy for finding treatments optimally tailored for women and men to prevent cognitive decline is in aging as well as progression of neurodegenerative disease by leveraging sex difference in the brain. Aging is associated with cognitive decline and brain atrophy. Aging also confers a major risk for developing a neurodegenerative disease. Given the aging population, novel strategies are needed to identify neuroprotective therapeutics. The study of sex difference in brain aging and neurodegenerative disease can reveal new candidate treatment targets tailored for women and men. Understanding the role of sex chromosome gene expression in the brain in the context of warning sex hormones during aging is a new approach to identifying neuroprotective treatments. Dr. Rhonda Wonschuk, Professor, and Dr. Yushiro Aito, Associate Researcher in the Department of Neurology, have created a roadmap to identify novel neuroprotective treatments tailored for women and men that leverage known sex difference in brain aging and neurodegenerative diseases. Okay. Previously, research pursuing treatment for neurodegenerative disease ignored sex differences in the brain and pooled data together from males and females, taking a one size fits all approach. This could dilute out robust effects that exist in one sex but not the other at the clinical research level and fail to capitalize on known disease modifiers in the discovery of a new treatment targets at the basic research level. In their study, the X factor is neurodegeneration. Bonskill and Ito write that known sex difference in the brain as well as the effect of higher expression of certain X chromosome genes in females XS compared to males XY can be accessed for their role in neurodegeneration during aging, a stage of life characterized by loss of potentially neuroprotective hormones in females, estrogen in menopause, and males testosterone in andropause. The study offers a roadmap for disentangling the contribution of these six specific factors, which can yield treatment optimized and targeted for each sex. Okay. In the future, this roadmap can be used by research to discover targets on the X chromosome gene for development of modulatory treatment to prevent neurodegeneration and promote neural repair during brain aging. Given the aging population and lack of treatment to prevent cognitive decline during health and to reduce the risk for developing and neurodegenerative diseases, it is now imperative to apply a new strategy to identify neuroprotective treatment, said Vonslook, who also directs the UCLA multiple sclerosis program. Leveraging what is known about sex differences in multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's disease, and Parkinson's disease can reveal candidate treatment targets tailored for women and men affected by these conditions. Sex chromosome effects remain understudied and represent a promising frontier for discovery, particularly in the context of declining level of sex chromosomes during menopause and andropause. The study is published in the Journal of Experimental Medicine as part of a science focused on sex differences in health and disease. So, I mean, great man, great research, great roadmap given by our researcher and doctors. Study shows that adaptive immune response can cause cellular loss in aging brain. Okay, let's see. Past neuroscience studies have constantly demonstrated that the aging of the mammalian nervous system is like with the decline in the volume of functioning of white matter nerve fibers found in deep brain tissues. Although this is now a well established finding, the mechanism underpinning the decline of white matter and associated pathologies are poorly understood. Researchers at Ludwig Maximilian University LMU of Munich, Technical University of Munich, the German Center of Neurodegenerative Diseases, Munich Cluster of System Neurology, and University Hospital, Winzburg, have recently carried out a study aimed at better understanding the neural mechanism that might result in the deterioration of white matter. The findings, published in Nature Neuroscience, suggest that adaptive immune responses could promote the loss of cells in aging white matter. Among the hallmarks of brain aging is a decline in white matter volume and function, which leads to an increase in neurological disorders. Mikhail Simons and Ozgun Kyoksey, two of the researchers who carried out the study, told Medical Express, white matter contains nerve fibers, axons, which are extension of nerve cells, neurons. Many of these nerve fibers are surrounded by a type of sheath of covering called myelin, which allows our neurons to communicate fast and give white matter its color. The key objective of the recent work by Simons, Goxe, and their colleagues was to better understand what causes the decline of white matter in the brains of mammals as they age, identifying the specific reaction of brain cell to aging. In one of the previous work published in Neuron, the researcher found an association between aging and alterations of white matter in the brain, which prompt microglia, that is resistant immune cells in the brain, to be more reactive. In our previous work, we showed that microglia help to clear age-induced myelin damage, Simons and Goxe. We followed up on this work and tried to understand how these changes occurred and focused on the role of oligodendrocytes, mammalian cells of the central nervous system, as they are the cell being lost in aging. To unveil the mechanism underpinning white matter declining in the aging brain, the researcher carried out a series of experiments on mice. More specifically, they used a combination of mouse genetics, single cell genomics, and morphological analysis to study what happened in the mice brains as they aged. Okay. That experiment led to an unexpected discovery, namely that adaptive immune responses drive interferon responsive microglia and oligodendrocytes in the aging white matter. This means that in mammals, some of the body's natural response to fight diseases might cause the loss of vital brain cells and in the decline of white matter. In our study, we showed that the adaptive immune responses are one cause of the cellular loss in aging brain. They suggest that if we block harmful adaptive immune responses, we can possibly postpone brain aging. Oh, okay. Simmons and Cox said. By analyzing the data collected in their experiments, Simmons, Cox, and their colleagues were able to identify two types of oligodendrocyte states associated with aging. In their paper, they termed these states age related and interferon responsive oligodendrocytes. We were surprised to see how extensively oligodendrocytes respond to aging in the white matter. Simmons and Giox said, we also observed that CD8T cells drive the formation of interferon responsive oligodendrocytes. Together, our findings show that the adaptive immune system is an important modifier of white matter aging. The result gathered by this team of researchers could improve the current understanding of the aging brain and particularly of the mechanism underpinning the decline of white matter. In the future, they could help to shed more light on the causes of some neurological disorders, potentially promoting the development of more efficient treatment strategies. We are currently analyzing whether the changes we observed in mice also occurred in the aging human brain, Simmons and Cox added. In our next study, we would also like to explore how infections such as COVID 19 and flu altered white matter aging. I mean, great man, great research for the our immune system, improve our immune system, and of course, reduce the aging process and identifying those things which will be used in many of course for our sustainable and healthy life. So great man, great. Moving on to our next topic, gate tunable heterojunction tunnel triodes based on 2D metals, selenide and 3D silicon. Okay, let's see. Electronics engineers worldwide are trying to improve the performance of devices which also lowering their power consumption. Tunnel field effect transistors TFETs, an experimental class of transistor with a unique switching mechanism, could be a particularly promising solution for developing low power electronics. Despite their potential, most TFETs based on silicon and third, fifth heterojunction exhibit low on current densities and on and off current ratios in some modes of operation. Fabricating this transistor using 2D material could help to improve electrostatic control, potentially increasing their on current densities and on off ratios. Researchers at University of Pennsylvania, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and the National Institute of Standard and Technology and the Air Force Research Laboratory have recently developed new heterojunction tunnel triodes based on van der Waals heterostructures from 2D metal, selenide, and 3D silicon. These triodes, presented in a paper published in Nature Electronics, could outperform other TFETs presented in the past in terms of on current density and on off ratios. This paper is based on the realization of tunneling transistor or switching devices based on the 2D material deep Jadiwala. One of the researchers who carried out the study told Tech Explode, "It is a well known idea that many people have been trying to work on and solve for a decade now. The issue has always been performance of the device. To make a strong case to improve the performance of tunneling switching device in terms of on-off current ratios, sub-threshold swing and on-current density. Some studies try to develop devices using slowly silicon and third, fifth semiconductor or 2D semiconductor. While some of the proposed devices performed better than others, the performance appeared to be impaired in at least one relevant dimension. With our work, we have shown that when 2D insulators and W ins okay WHC2 is combined with silicon, all three major performance characteristics of the device mentioned above can be simultaneously improved, Jadiwala explained. To fabricate their heterojunction tunnel triode, Jadiwala and his colleagues stamp an INSE crystal onto a heavily p-doped silicon wafer. Subsequently, the current contacts using lithography, a printing method, deposited on a top gate dielectric and pat- patterned gate electrodes. One key advantage of our gate tunable tunnel triodes is that they are based on silicon, which is underlying material for all microprocessors, Jadiwala said. In addition, they have some of the sleepest sub-threshold swing, on and off current ratio, and on current density for tunneling devices, making them some of the most energy efficient and effective switches based on tunneling phenomena. In initial tests, the triodes created by the researcher attained sub-threshold slopes as low as 6.4 meter volt decade and average sub-threshold slopes of 34 milliwatt decade. Over 4 decades of drain current, remarkably, they also exhibited a current on-off ratio of approximately 10 to power 6 and an on-state current density of 0.3 mu ampere meter at the drain bias of minus 1 volt. We showed that INSE works as an excellent 2D semiconductor in combination with good old silicon for enabling some of the most energy efficient switching devices, Jadiwala said. The possible implications of the finding are immense since energy efficiency are not more low. For scaling down devices is the key requirement needed for the art in terms of innovation at the device level in microelectronics. The heterojunction tunnel triodes introduced by Jadiwala and his colleague could pave the way towards the realization of better performing low power electronic devices. In principle, the design could also be scaled up to wafers, given that INSE based 2D materials can be directly grown on silicon. In our next study, we plan to scale up the material growth to make it more practical and scale down the device dimensions to improve the performance even further, Jadiwala added. Demonstrating the material growth over a large area on a wafer will be a big milestone which we hope to achieve by next year. Okay. Moving on to our next topic. Erbium atoms in silicon, a prime candidate for quantum networks. Okay, let's see. A team of researchers at the MPQ has pioneered the integration of erbium atoms with with special optical properties into a silicon crystal. The atoms can thus be connected by light at a wavelength that is commonly used in telecommunications. This makes them ideal building blocks for further quantum networks that enables calculation with several quantum computers, as well as the secure exchange of data in a quantum internet. Since the new experimental result were achieved without sophisticated cooling and are based on established method of semiconductor production, the method appears suitable for large networks. When quantum computers are connected to a network, completely new possibility arises, analogous to the internet, consisting of the interconnected classical computers such as quantum network, can be realized by entangling individual carrier of quantum information, so-called qubits, with each other using light. The qubits in turn can be built from individual atoms that are isolated from one another and embedded in a host crystal. A team of researchers at the Max Planck Institute of Quantum Optics (MPQ) in Garching and the Technical University of Munich has now demonstrated a feasible way to build a quantum network using atom in a silicon crystal. This means that the same technology employed in classical computer can also be used for quantum computers and their and their networks. This work is published in Physical Review X. Losses and strong coherence. The new technology relies. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Low losses and strong coherence. The new technology relies on RBM atoms that are implanted into the crystal lattice of silicon under very specific conditions. We know from earlier experiments that RBM has good optical properties such as applications, says Dr. Andreas Resvier, head of Auto Hand Quantum Network Research Group at MPQ. The atoms of this rare earth element emit infrared light at a wavelength of around 1500 to 50 nanometers, the spectral range used for data transport in optical fiber cables. It exhibits only low loss during propagation in a light conducting fiber. In addition, the light emitted by erbium has excellent coherence. Razor notes. This means that individual wave trains are in a stable phase relationship to one another, a prerequisite for the storage and transmission of quantum information. These characteristics made erbium a prime candidate for realizing a quantum computer or being used as an information carrier in a quantum network. Result says, okay. However, what may sound simple posed a tricky technological challenge for the MPQ researchers. Among other things, the team had to embed individual atoms of the rare earth element in the crystalline matrix in a target and reproducibly manner and fix them in a specific position relative to the silicon atoms. We choose silicon for this because it is already used for classical semiconductor that form the basis of our information society. Explain the physicists established processes are available for the preparation of silicon crystal on high quality and purity. Okay. Moderate temperature narrow spectral lines to integrate erbium atoms into such a crystal in technical jargon. To dope it, first had to be endowed with nanometer fine structures. They serve as light conducting elements. Then the researcher irradiated the silicon with a beam of erbium ions so that the individual atom penetrated and exposed to different places at high temperatures. In contrast to the usual procedure, we did not heat the chips or to 1000 but only to a maximum of 500 degrees Celsius, says Andreas Gritz, a doctoral student in the team. The consequences of the comparatively moderate temperature was a particularly stable integration of individual erbium atoms in the crystal lattice without a large number of atoms clustering together. This manifested itself in unusually narrow spectral lines in the emission of the infrared light by the erbium. Reports grids at around 10 kilohertz, which is the smallest spectral line width measured in a natural structure to date. This is also a favorable property for the construction of a quantum network, the researcher says. And there is another feature that distinguishes the method optimized by the Garching researcher for doping the silicon crystal. The excellent optical properties of the introduced erbium atoms do not only show up in the immediate vicinity of the absolute zero at minus 273 degrees Celsius as in previous experiments. Instead, they can also be observed at temperature considered high for quantum phenomena of around 8 Kelvin degrees, about absolute zero. Such a temperature can be achieved by cooling in a cryostat with liquid helium, says Andres Reisrud. This is a technological easy to realize and paves the way towards future applications. Diverse potential application. The range of possible future application for quantum network is vast. Quantum computers could be built from them, in which a large number of separate processors are interconnected with such computing machines which use certain quantum mechanical effects. Complex tasks can be mastered that cannot be solved with conventional classical system. Alternatively, quantum networks could be used to investigate the properties of new types of materials, or they could be used to build a kind of quantum internet in which previously unattainable amounts of information could be transmitted, similar to the normal internet but encrypted securely using quantum cryptography, says Reservoir. The prerequisite for all these potential applications is to quantum mechanical entangle qubits in a network. To show that this is also possible based on erbium atoms in silicon chips in our new task, says Andreas Reservoir. Together with his team, the physicists are already working on mastering the challenge's goal to show that the circuits for powerful quantum networks can be pretty similar to microchip for mobile phones or notebook computers, but pave a broad field for new scientific finding and technical possibilities that are unthinkable itself. Unthinkable today. Okay. Moving on towards next topic. The secret to the skillful skydiving of the wingless springtails. Early in the pandemic, Victor Ortego Jimenez was exploring creeks near his home and observing springtails. The organisms are the most abducted non-insect hexapods on Earth, and Ortego Jimenez suspected their avoidance of predators had something to do with their ability to jump on water surface and land perfectly in the same spot. Ortego Jimenez brought the hypothesis back to his lab in Georgia Tech School of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering (CHB), using a combination of computation and robophysical modeling as well as fluid dynamics experiments. The researchers were able to see for the first time the mechanics of springtail movement. They determined how springtail control their jump self-right in mid-air and land on their feet, all within the blink of an eye, effectively saving them from predators. These extraordinary organisms with unique morphology live at a very precarious place, the water surface, said CHPE Assistant Professor Sand Bamla. So when the jump from and land back on water, we must understand the effects of both hydrodynamics and aerodynamics. How they land perfectly on their feet almost every time on the surface of water was the puzzle we set to solve in this paper. Otago, Gymnast, Bamla, and their collaborators presented the research in directional takeoff, aerial writing, and Edison landing of semi-aquatic springtails, published in the Proceeding of the National Academy of Science, Understanding Springtails. The researcher discovered that springtails are so successful because of posture, mostly by their unique appendages for jumping and adhesion. First, they adjust the angle of their leaping organ and the furcula when they take off. Then they change their posture mid-air within into a U shape that create aerodynamic torque, effectively self-righting them 20 milliseconds into the jump, the fastest way of a wingless organism. They land on a chlorophore, an appendage particular to the springtail that holds water. Springtails are a part of the Columbo family organism that are known for having a hydrophilic chlorophore, a tube-like structure that holds a water droplet and can adhere to surfaces. The researcher determined this chlorophore is essential for the springtail to glide on the surface of a water and effectively land on its feet without bouncing. With high-speed imaging and a hydrodynamic oscillator force mathematical model using surface tension, inertia, buoyancy, drag, capillary dissipation, and action forces, the researcher calculated how the springtail takes advantage of its chlorophore for stable landings that release energy through capillary waves. Nobody has shown experimental what their chlorophore is really for, and we are showing that it's for their survival. Otago Gymnast said they need this for stability, controlling their takeoff, but more importantly, how to perfectly land like an acrobat. After the research observed the jump, they found the springtails could control their takeoff angle and speed. They broke it down into a mathematical model to determine how precise these jumps were in a computer simulation. The model suggested that if springtails can control the angle of their body, they can glide on the surface of the water with their chlorophore. Validating Otago experimental observations, researchers explored the self-righting ability of springtails by using dead and living springtails in a wind tunnel, as well as using free-fall physical models. They found that the springtail U-shaped posture and a droplet collected by the chlorophore create the perfect landing. This work shows just how important controlled motion is for predator escape and survival, said Catherine Dixon, a program director at the National Science Foundation, which partially funded the research. Springtail could not have become the most abducted non-insect hexapod without being able to control their gymnast-like escape response. In addition to being fascinating to watch, this new understanding of the biomechanics of how springtail control their jump, spin in midair, and land safety on water could lead to advances in fields from robotics to aerodynamics. Dynamics. Next, the researcher built small robots to replicate their experimental computational observation in a physical environment in collaboration with Professor Jung-Won Kohn team at the Ogyo University in South Korea. It has been a major challenge for jumping robots, specifically at small scale, to control their orientation in the air for landing and jumping. Ko said the finding in this research could inspire insect scale jumping robots that are able to land safely and expand the capability of robots in new terrains, such as the open water surfaces on our planet, lakes, and oceans. The researcher created a small robot with drag flapper to validate the observation that a chlorophore and body shape are needed to land. We show in three different cases that the native robot spins out of control and land unpredictably harmless it. But as you add each of these increments, like the drag flappers, we demonstrate that the robot can achieve stability and land on its feet. The robot has a 75% success rate compared to the springtail 85% success rate, making the result significant, but the result could have implication for more than just springtails. We are now opening this Pandora box of what smaller animals can do. Ontario Gymnast said, there is a belief that because they are tiny, they don't have as much control as big animals do. So we are opening some possibility of control at this small scale that could give insights into the origin of fluid in organisms. Okay, okay. Moving on towards next topic. Artificial intelligence deciphers detector clouds to accelerate materials research. X-rays can be used like a superfast atomic resolution camera, and if researchers shoot a pair of X-ray pulses just moments apart, they get atomic resolution snapshots of a system of 2 points in time. Comparing this snapshot shows how material fluctuates within a tiny fraction of a second, which could help scientists design future generation of superfast computer communication and other technologies. Resolving the information in the X-ray snapshot, however, is difficult and time intensive, so Joshua Turner, a lead scientist at the Department of Energy SLAC National Accelerator Center at Stanford University, and the 10 other researchers turned to artificial intelligence to automate the process. Their machine learning aided method, published October 17 in Structural Dynamics, accelerate this X-ray probing technique and extends it to previously inaccessible materials. The most exciting thing to me is that we can now access a different range of measurement which we couldn't before. Turner had. Handling the bob. When studying material using this two pulse technique, the X-ray scattered off a material and are usually detected one photon at a time. A detector measures these scattered photons, which are used to produce a speckle pattern, a Blaschke image that represents the precise configuration of the sample at one instant at a time. Researchers compare the speckle patterns from each pair of pulsars to calculate fluctuation in the sample. However, every photon creates an explosion of electrical charge on the detector, Turner said. If there are too many photons, these charge clouds merge together to create an unrecognizable blob. This cloud of noise means the researcher must collect tons of scattering data to yield a clear understanding of the speckle pattern. You need a lot of data to work out what's happening in the system, said Satya Chutri, a PhD student at Stanford University who led this work. He is advised by Turner and co-author Mike Dune, director of the LINAC Coherent Light Source LCLS X-ray lasers at SLAC. With conventional method, all of data had to be collected first, then analyzed using model that estimate how the photons bunch together at the detector. A lengthy process to understand the speckle patterns. The machine learning method, on the other hand, used the raw detector image or scattered photon to directly extract fluctuation information. This new method is 10 times faster on its own and 100 times faster when combined with improved hardware, allowing data analysis in closer to real time. Part of the success of the new method came from efforts of co-author Nicholas Burdett, an associate staff scientist at Slack, who developed a simulator that produced data with which to train the machine learning model. Through this training, the algorithm was able to learn how the charged clouds merge and untangle how many photons hit the detector per blob and per pulse paired. The model proved accurate even under very blobby conditions. Seeing beyond the clouds, the model can extract information for a range of material that have been difficult to study because X-rays scattered off them too weakly for detection, such as high temperature, superconductor, or quantum spin lipids. Chitri said the new method could also be applied to other non quantum material, including colloids, alloys, and glasses. Turner said the research should be helped for the LCLS second upgrade, which will allow researchers to collect up to million images or a few terabytes of data per second compared to about 100 images a second for LCLS. And Slack, we are excited about this upgrade, but have also been kind of worried if we can handle this amount of data, Turner said in a related paper. The team found that their new technique should be fast enough to deal with all that data. This new algorithm will uh, really help. The speed boost offered by artificial intelligence promises to also alter the experimental process itself. Instead of making decision after data collection and analysis, researchers will be able to analyze data and make changes during data collection, which could save time and money spent during the experiment. It will also allow the researcher to spot surprises and direct their experiments in real time to investigate unexpected phenomena. This method can let us explore more of the material science you are interested in and maximize scientific impacts by letting you make decisions at different points along your experiment about changes in experimental variables such as temperature, magnetic field, and material composition. Chitri said. The study is a part of larger collaboration between Slack, Northeastern University, and Harvard University to use machine learning to advance materials and chemistry research. Moving on to our next topic, rare fossil clam discovered alive. Discovering a new species is always exciting, but so is finding one alive that everyone assumed had been lost through the passage of time. A small clam, previously known only from fossils, has recently been found living at Naples Point, just up to the coast from UC Santa Barbara. The discovery appears in the journal Zookeys. Okay. It's not all the common to find alive a species first known from the fossil record, especially in a region as well studied as Southern California, said co-author Jeff Goddard, a research associate at UC Santa Barbara Marine Science Institute. Art doesn't go back anywhere near as far as the famous Colliolancath or the deep water Mulix neopilinia galathei, representing an entire class of animals thought to have disappeared 400 million years ago, but it doesn't go back to the time of all the wondrous animals captured by the La Brea tar pits. On an afternoon low tide in temperate In November 2018, Goddard was turning over rocks searching for nudie branch sea slugs at Naples Point when a pair of small translucent bivalves caught his eye. Their shells were only 10 millimeters long, he said, but when they extended and started waving about a bridge white shripped foot longer than their shell, I realized I had never seen this species before. The surprised Goddard, who has spent decades in California interdital uh, habitats, including many years specifically at Naples Point, he immediately stopped what he was doing to take closer photos for the interviewing animals. With quality images in hand, Goddard decided not to collect the animals, which appeared to be rare. After pinning down their taxonomic family, he sent the images to Paul Scott, curator emeritus of malacology at the St. Barbara Museum of Natural History. I was surprised and intrigued, Scott recalled. I know this family of bivalves, Galeomemtide, very well along the coast of the Americas. This was something I had never seen before. He mentioned a few possibilities to Goddard, but said he did need to see their animal in person to make a proper assessment. So Goddard uh, returned to Naples Point to claim his calm. But after 2 hours combining just a few square meters, he still hadn't caught sight of his prize. The species would continue to elude him many more times. 9 trips later, in March 2019, and nearly ready to give up for good, Goddard turned out yet another rock and saw the needle in the haystack. A single specimen need to be coupled a small white nudie branch and a large chiton. Valiant Scott would get his specimen at last, and the pair could finally set to work on identification. Valiant Scott was even more surprised once he got his hand on the shell. He knew it belonged to a genus with one member in the Santa Barbara region, but the shell didn't match any of them. It raised the exciting possibility that they had found a new species. This really started the hunt for me, Valentine Scott said. When I suspect something is a new species, I need to track back through all of the scientific literature from 1758 to the present. It can be daunting task, but with experience it can go pretty quickly. The two researchers decided to check out an intergoing reference to a fossil species. They tracked down an illustration of the bivalve Bornea cookie from the paper describing the species in 1937. It appeared to match the modern specimen. If confirmed, this would mean the Goddard have found not a new species, but a sort of living fossil. It is worth nothing that the scientist who described the species, George Willett, estimated had excavated and examined perhaps 1 million fossil specimens from the same location, the Baldwin Hills in Los Angeles. That said, he never found B. Cookie himself. Rather, he named it after Edna Cook, a Baldwin Hills collector who had found the only two specimens known. Vincent Scott requested Willett's original specimen, now classified as Simotea Samosia Samotio Cookie, from the Natural History of Museum of Los Angeles County. This object called the type specimen served to define the specimens served to define the species, so it's ultimately arbitered to the clam identification. Meanwhile, Code had found another specimen at Niles Point, a single empty shell in the sand underneath a boulder. After carefully comparing the specimen from Niles Point with Willard fossil, Vengeance Scott concluded they were the same species. It was pretty remarkable, he recalled. Same size and cryptic habitat, notwithstanding all of this begs the question of how the clam eluded detection for so long. There is a long history of shell collecting and malacology in southern California, including folks interested in the harder to find micromolecules. That isn't hard to believe. No one found even the shells of our little cutie, Godad said. He suspects that clams may have arrived here on currents as planktonic larvae carried up from the south during marine heat wave from 2014 through 2016. This enabled many marine species to extend this distribution northward, including several documented specifically at the Nels Point, depending on the animal growth and longevity. This could explain why no one had noticed sea cookie at the site prior to 2018, including Goddard, who has worked on the nudie branches at Nails Point since 2002. The Pacific coast of Baja California has broad intertidal boulder fields that stretch literally for miles, Goddard said, and I suspect that down there, Samosio cookie is probably living in close association with animal burrowing beneath those boulders. Moving on towards next topic and the last topic of this podcast, shedding light on the superconductivity of newly discovered cagom metals. Already used in computers and MRI machines, superconductor material that can transmit electricity without resistance hold promise further development of even more advanced technologies like hover trains and quantum computing. Yet, how superconductivity works in many materials remains a mystery that limits its application. A new study published in Nature Physics sheds light on the superconductivity of Av3Sb5, a recently discovered family of Kago metals. The research was led by Liang Wu of the School of Art and Science and conducted by Yunxuan Zhu, a postdoc in View Lab, and graduate student Xingyong Ni and Kunwen Tang in collaboration with the researchers from the Weizmann Institute of Science and University of California, Santa Barbara. Since this discovered a superconductor with this chemical formula Av3Sb5, where A refers to cesium, rubidium, or potassium, have generated immense interest for their exotic properties. The compounds featured a cagom lattice, an unusual atomic arrangement that resembles and takes its name from a Japanese basket weave pattern of interlaced corner shading triangles. Cagom lattice material have fascinated researchers for decades because they provide a window into quantum phenomena such as geometrical frustration, topology, and strong correlations. While previous research on Av3Sb5 has discovered the coexistence of two different comparative cooperative electronic state, the charge density, wave order, and superconductivity, the nature of the symmetry breaking that accompanies this state has been uncleared. In physics, symmetry refers to a physical or mathematical feature of a system that remains unchanged under certain transformation. When a material transition from a normal high temperature state to an exotic low temperature state like superconductivity, it undergoes symmetry breaking. View, whose lab develops and uses time resolved and non-linear optical techniques to study quantum materials, set out to clarify the nature of symmetry and breaking when AV3SB5 enters the charge density wave phase. AV3SB5 exhibit what researchers call a cascade of symmetry broken phases. In other words, as the system cools down, it begins to enter a symmetry breaking state with lower and lower temperature, leading to additionally broken symmetries. In order to use superconductor for application, we need to understand them uses. Because superconductivity develops at even lower temperature, we need to understand the charge density wave phase first. In its normal state, AV3SB5 consists of a hexagonal crystal structure composed of cagum lattice of vanadium V atoms coordinated by antimony SB stacked on top of one another with sheets of cesium, rubidium, and or potassium in between each VSB layer. The structure in is six-fold rotational symmetry. When rotated by 60 degrees, it shares the same. To find out whether AV3SB5 retained its six-fold symmetry in the charge density wave phase, the researcher performed scanning by fringes measurement on all three members of the AV3SB5 family. Birefringence or double refraction refers to an optical property exhibited by material with crystallographically distinct axes, a principal axis and non-equivalent axis. When light hits the material along the non-equivalent axis, it splits in two, with each ray polarized, the traveling at different speeds. In a Cagnum plane, the linear optical response should be the same along any direction, but they are not in the AV3SB5 because between the two Cagnum layers there's a relative shift. View says, explaining that the birefringes measurement revealed the difference between two orthogonal direction in the plane and a phase shift between the two layers that reduces the six-fold rotational symmetry of the materials of the two-fold when they enter the charge density wave state. This was not clear to the physics community before. Distinct axes are not the only explanation for the rotation of the light polarization plane. When linearly polarized light encounters a magnetic surface, it also changes a phenomenon known as the magneto-optical CAD effect. After separating out of the property of birefringence by sending light along the principal axis in samples of AV3SB5, the researcher could use a second optical technique to measure the onset of the CAD effect for all three metals. The experiments reveal formation of charge density wave breaks, another symmetry, time reversal symmetry. The simplest way to break time reversal symmetry, which holds that the law of physics remain the same whether time runs forward or backwards, is to use a permanent magnet like those we put on a refrigerator, View says. However, the CAD effect is only observable at low temperature with high resolution, indicating that the Cagnum metals are not substantially magnetic with this quantum material, View says, and he and his collaborator theorize that time reversal symmetry is not broken by the permanent magnet but by a circulating loop current. To confirm the nature of time reversal symmetry breaking in the charge density wave state, the researchers performed a third experiment in which they measured the circular dichroism, or the unequal reflectivity of left-handed and right-handed circularly polarized light of the chain density wave phase. We still need further work, but this finding really supports the possibility of circulating loop current, the existence of which would suggest the unconventional nature of the superconductivity in the metal, says Wu. In 2018, Congress passed the National Quantum Initiative Act with the goal of advancing research on quantum material and the development of quantum technology. Quantum materials include those with topological properties and those with correlation like the KAGO metals Av3sb5, while View previous research centered on the former category and antiferromagnets. He says that the scanning optic technique that he developed for these studies presented a ready and versatile tool for studying symmetry breaking in new KAGO metals. All superconductors are interesting because they could potentially be used as the basis of quantum computer, but before using these new superconductors for quantum computing we need to understand the nature of the superconductivity, View says. So these are the study, these are the finding given by our researcher on the study line on superconductivity materials. At last I just wanna say you guys, keep researching, stay curious, stay healthy.